I hate horror. It wasn't always like that, but when I went to college, I studied media production. It was there I took a few film classes, and the horror movies that I used to enjoy became so predictable that I fell out of love with the genre. The same movies that would have me hidden beneath a blanket became movies I'd criticize. The same thing happened for video games, and because of that, I haven't been interested in the horror genre for quite some time. But that changed recently. One night, scrolling through Steam while looking for something to play,
Play me. No.
I came across a game in the anime section. With an unusual name such as Milk Inside a Bag of Milk Inside a Bag of Milk, and the price of just a few cents, it immediately caught my attention. The premise of the game itself wasn't anything enticing. You're asked to help a girl buy a bag of milk. At first, I thought this was just one of those bad Steam games that you see every now and again. That was until I saw the reviews tagged as overwhelmingly positive. For only 49 cents, I figured, what the hell, I have nothing else to do tonight. But I had stumbled across a game that's about much more than just going to the store. One thing before we start, if you're bad with jump scares, I won't be including any in this video. There will be unsettling imagery, but I'm aiming to talk about the game, not frighten you with it. The game starts with a girl practicing her lines. Not for a play or anything, but simply to purchase milk at the store. She says it herself that she hasn't been outside for a long time, and it takes her several tries before getting remotely close to correctly asking for a bag of milk. She never even gets the sentence right before just dropping it entirely. She also mentions her thoughts being portrayed on screen like a video game, and of course breaking the fourth wall, which is something that becomes more important later on. We, as the protagonist, tasked with helping her out, walk along beside her, pointing out that she's been half walking on the sidewalk and the grass instead of fully on the path. When asked for how long, we respond with 50 steps on asphalt, 51 on grass. This becomes the main conversation for a little while, and it seems rather odd to drone on about how many steps you've taken in the grass in comparison to on asphalt, but keep this in mind, I'll explain it a little more later. After a bit of bickering, you manage to refocus the girl on the main objective and arrive at the store. When you get inside, you run into a worker, but this thing isn't human, at least not in appearance. It looks as though it's less of a person and more of a monster. A slim figure with its face hidden, with only its eyes appearing as two dots. Whenever the girl attempts to speak with them, they just reply with the letter O. They go back and forth, until she eventually reveals that this employee is trying to scare her with the letter O. When we ask how the letter is creepy, she responds that it gives her a frightening image when she thinks of it, cutting to the picture of this void that disrupts her dialogue. After it cuts back, she repeats the letter O to the employee, in which it repeats O back, then crawls away. The protagonist then tells her that she should do this more often. This is something that I've interpreted as her facing her fears. Considering the girl is scared by a letter, but used it to have the employee stop bothering her, the line, "you should do this more often," could be a signal that this girl is constantly at the mercy of her fears, and standing up to them isn't as difficult as she makes it out to be. Once more, she breaks the fourth wall when the protagonist claims that they never heard her describe the employee crawling away, but that she knows her words appeared on the screen. Finally, we reach the bags of milk, and there's a brief dialogue between the protagonist and the girl, where she goes on about milk inside a bag of milk inside a bag of milk. When the intercom warns them that the store will be closing in 15 minutes, the girl is ushered to the front. We meet another employee here, and get another look at these creatures. This time, the monster's eyes are shown. They're beady and wide apart, along with the body being very unnatural in appearance. Slender, with a curved neck and stick-like arms. It speaks in sudden and loud demands. Clearly, she just wants to get out of there, but the creature won't allow her. Then we remind her to pay for the milk. After doing so, she thanks the employee, and we leave the store. Walking home, the protagonist asks her how she's feeling, and she responds with she feels like a mile of ice cream. She explains that while ice cream is great, a mile of it would melt, something I take as her feeling rather lukewarm about being able to buy her milk. We see another sequence of the girl focusing rather heavily on how she walks, saying how she counts every step and she even has to close her eyes for more concentration. It's here when she almost gets hit by a truck, were it not for the protagonist warning her to step aside. The girl doesn't even recognize it as a truck and even calls it a bear in her thoughts. When warning her that the truck could have killed her, she asks why somebody would want to kill an innocent girl carrying milk, almost as if naive to the idea that an accident could have taken her life. The two reach a crosswalk, and it's here that the girl admits something to the player. She's sad. Here we can talk to her about how everything that's happening may just all be in her head, and it's here that the player can really press into a bad ending. Attempting to make this girl realize that everything going on is in her imagination, she begs for us to stop, and if we don't ease up, the game hits us with a bad end. She stares us in the eyes, and her thoughts are placed on the screen. Looks like your character doesn't help me at all. I guess I'll try something else next time. When you restart, if you use the same name, the prompt will read, again? I hope we can do it this time. If you drop the issue as requested, the girl will ask to speak directly to you, the person playing the game. You sit with her on a park bench and she looks into the sky. She admits that the medication she's taking doesn't work all that well. She doesn't want to tell us her diagnosis, even if we're somebody that she's made up. Even if we're imaginary to her, she wants at least somebody to see her for who she is, instead of her diagnosis. Here you can type directly to her, which is the part of the game that I really loved, even if it's a short bit. You're only given a handful of opportunities to speak, and there isn't much you can say, but there's no pre-written dialogue. You're talking directly to this girl, just as she's requested. She mentions that we've been seeing the world through her eyes, and that this red tint over everything is just how she's seen the world since the event, and that she's forgotten what other colors look like. She doesn't wish to talk about what happened, but when asked if we promise not to ask, answering yes will just bring up the prompt again. Answering with I promise will send you forward with her admitting defeat and telling you anyway, since we're just something she's made up in her mind. We're shown a picture, but because of the oversaturation of red, it's hard to make out what exactly we're looking at. She asks us to guess, and reveals that what we're looking at is actually her father, or what's left of him anyway. Her father threw himself from a window, taking his own life. She then claims that there's a long gap in her memory following that event, and that buying milk today was the first time she's been able to do so without anything going wrong. She admits that the medication has helped, but it's more that she has dreamt us up as somebody to keep her in line. It's because we're at her side that she was able to do something as simple as go to the store. She's thanking us for helping her before we interrupt, telling her to go home. She says that her medicine is kicking in, though she doesn't like the way it makes her feel, saying that the sounds in her head blend all too well with the noise of the world around her. Finally, we reach the inside of her apartment, and we're greeted by an eyeless monster who asks if the girl brought the milk. She greets the monster with, "Hi, Mom," informing us that this thing is her mother, or at least how she perceives her to be. The mother repeats the question. The girl says yes, to which her mother then asks if her new medicine works. The girl again confirms before being told to go to bed by her mother. The music begins to rise, and we're brought back to the main menu. That's the end of the game. If you've seen some of the other videos on this channel, you know that the topic of mental health is one that I'm a sucker for when it comes to its portrayal in media, especially when it's done very well, and this game is a masterpiece when it comes to that. The main character clearly has several issues in that aspect. The two most obvious ones that I feel are best represented are the trauma of finding her father after taking his own life, and obsessive-compulsive disorder, or OCD for short. OCD is defined as having unreasonable thoughts and fears that led to compulsive behaviors. We see this early in the game when the girl spends a lot of time, likely even in-game hours, debating over how many footsteps she's taken on the grass and asphalt. On their way back from the store, she said that she's counting the meters she walks, and even closes her eyes to focus on doing so. This almost results in her getting hit by a truck, something that doesn't even seem to faze her. In the comments of some of the videos I watched on this game, people who suffer from OCD make the same comments, that this game is often how they see the world. The monsters at the supermarket weren't monsters at all, just how the girl perceived people she had difficulty in talking to. It's the same with her mother, leading us to believe that the girl may not be a very reliable narrator. The interaction with her mother is the most tense part of this game, feeling like something is going to kick off at any moment. But if you pay attention to the dialogue, it's just a mother checking in on her daughter. Did you buy the milk? How are your new meds working? You've been out all day, maybe you should go get some rest. It's nothing out of the ordinary, but it's horrifying for somebody like the girl dealing with OCD, trauma, anxiety, and likely numerous other conditions that we've only scratched the surface of. Although there is another theory that some had. There have been some connections drawn between a few lines of dialogue, specifically to how the girl speaks to the cashier about not being able to buy the milk. She says if she doesn't bring back the milk, her mom will throw her out the window. This is the same way her father died. Considering she sees the other people as monsters, the way she sees her mother is easily the scariest of what we've seen so far. It could be a real possibility that the mother pushed her husband to his death, hinting at another source of trauma for the girl. Not only did she see her father's body, but knowing her mother was to blame, and likely contributes to an abusive home environment if this is the case, would explain why she sees even family members as these terrifying beasts. After finding her father when he took his own life, this girl likely disassociated, which explains why she says there's a gap in her memory after that. Described in threads online, disassociation can be described as taking a nap in a car ride, being lightly asleep for the most part, yet waking up when there's a bump in the road that jolts you awake. Except that when you regain consciousness, it isn't a few minutes or a few hours that have passed, but larger gaps in time, sometimes months or even years. Disassociation is common after a traumatic event, and it could be because of her father's death that she experiences the world in the way she does now. We're seeing a girl attempt to finally cope and overcome her trauma after dealing with it for so long. After going through, as she has described, so many meds that she's forgotten which work, her newest plan is to envision herself as the protagonist of a visual novel. And to an extent, this is a genius plan. She's motivated, and we see that it works. She's never been able to go to the store on her own since her father's death, and now that she has this new method of attacking life head on, she's able to see things through. There are times when she falls down, such as getting hyper-fixated on the amount of steps she takes, or talking about how bagging a bag of milk would be milk inside a bag, inside a bag, inside a bag, and so on. But at the end of the day, she set out to buy milk, and she was able to do just that. A simple task that would have seemed impossible long before she came up with this new plan. There's a reason I love horror games that focus on how somebody with mental illness sees the world. Cry of Fear is a fantastic example of this. A free game on Steam, it deals with how a man named Simon sees the world after he's paralyzed from the waist down after getting hit by a car. Milk Inside a Bag of Milk has a similar feeling. This game isn't horror based on gore, jump scares, or horrific monsters. Even the quote jump scares aren't traditional by any means. Even the jump scares that occur aren't accompanied by loud noises or screaming like you'd see in other games. Considering you're always on edge, something like a quick cut can easily make you jump. Fucking Christ. This game is horror because it shows just how a small task like going to the store to buy milk can seem like a nightmare for those struggling with these issues. Talking to loved ones who battle depression, sometimes even rolling out of bed, is a huge accomplishment for them, something those without mental illnesses see as an easy task. It's through these games that we can gain an understanding of the lives those who do suffer lead. Mental illness isn't something to be taken lightly. Those who suffer from OCD sometimes need reassurance that they're doing the right thing, or have a rush of dread and anxiety when they realize that something has gone wrong. Something as small as walking on the grass instead of the road is enough to set this girl off herself. It's terrifying to think that this game is horror to many of us, but it's reality for those who suffer through it every day. And yet, there's something endearing about this game. We all talk to ourselves sometimes. There's a voice in our head that sometimes we need to hear. And when that voice tells us we did a good job, or that we should believe in ourselves, it is reassuring. In this game, that's all this girl needs is somebody telling her that she's doing that good job, and that she can do anything with just a little push. So for a horror game, there's something comforting about it. Video games that cover mental health are always so fascinating, and for less than $1 and only about 20 minutes of your time, I really couldn't recommend this game enough. It's really worth experiencing for yourself. And the creator of the game, Nikita Kurukov, is on YouTube. And they've also posted the soundtracks to the game, so be sure to give them some love after you've played. Also, while writing the script, I found out there's a sequel to this game, called Milk Outside a Bag of Milk Outside a Bag of Milk. Maybe I'll make a part 2 to this video covering that game too, if this one does well, so maybe leave a like, subscribe if you're interested in hearing more about this stuff. If you've made it this far in the video, thank you for sticking around. One more time, I highly encourage you to play this game if you haven't already. Also, if you're interested in hanging around the channel, please feel free to follow me on Twitter or join the Discord. I'm active, and sometimes funny. Regardless, thank you guys for watching the video, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.